And then Virginia, just wait a few seconds. All right, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Door to Door. We're the Library Love Fest marketing team at HarperCollins. It's Virginia, Chris, and Lainey. And today we have two fabulous authors who are going to talk to us about their new books. We have Elisabeth Thomas, the author of Catherine House. I'll just read the keynote. A debut of literary suspense set within a secluded elite university follows dangerously curious, rebellious undergraduate who uncovers a shocking secret about an exclusive circle of students. Oh, that's got a lot of people talking. And Ivy Pochoda, you know her from Wonder Valley and Visitation Street. She has a new book out called These Women. And this is a literary thriller of female empowerment and social change. How cool is that, jacket? So thank you both for coming today and being part of this.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
It's very cool. So what we thought we would do is just chat for a few minutes, and then we'll have one of you sit in the green room, and we'll talk to the other, and then reverse. But first, we just thought we'd have a chat, and I think the common denominator here is your bookcase is behind you.
Yeah, we were mentioning we hadn't meant to sync up our backgrounds, but we're both looking accidentally very scholarly and very erudite, and it looks great. It looks great. These are just good backgrounds for authors.
Yeah, you'll see over my left shoulder books I haven't opened in 25 years. Those are ancient Greek books that I may or may not have translated in high school and college. And it was pointed out to me the first time I Zoomed that I was like, looking a little more intellectual than I come across. It's just all a backdrop and a lie. And, someone actually pointed out that one of these books is a book from when I was in 1991, when I was in the 9th grade. So, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, I have kind of the same deal going on. These are my high school books, which are quite beloved, but oh my God, there's literally beloved is over here.
Oh, is that right? That's great.
Yep, we got some beloved. We got some other Toni Morrison, and I also took I took Latin in high school. So I also have I'm also looking very intellectual for some books that I have not read in quite some time.
And over on my right here is a volume of a box set of books that I've been told is worth thousands of dollars that I've never opened. It is the collected box set of William Vollmann's Rising Up, Rising Down. It is 6 volumes on violence that I've never even opened. And when I found it was worth something, I'm thinking of selling it.
I was like, now I'm never going to open them.
It's actually my husband's, but makes me look really smart to have these like nice bound books over here.
This is perfect.
That's absolutely beautiful. And it's nice to know that it's not just a Zoom background, because that's
I think I could do better if I had to pick a background.
It's been a whole thing, I'm sure you guys have seen this, when they're in various, webinars and team meetings and Zooms and crowdcasts, that people are zooming in to see what people are reading. I mean, it's kind of fascinating to see what's actually behind what you're supposed to be looking at.
Ooh,
anyway,
good strategy.
Yeah, not bad at all. So, well, it was fun to talk yesterday because you had not yet met each other, and so I always say, always, like we've been doing this forever, like it, that we should record our technical run-throughs because they're very funny, and that was one of the things that came up yesterday. So it was really sweet. But yeah,
we should meet. We will meet. We're both from Brooklyn. We both grew up relatively close to each other. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Believe in fate.
Mm-hmm.
I know. Well, now why don't you guys tell us where you are now? Where are you coming from?
Well, I can go right now. I'm Brooklyn still. I grew up in Brooklyn. I live in Brooklyn now, and I will be here for the foreseeable future, apparently. So yeah, I'm in my apartment in Prospect Leopards Gardens, which it's right next to Prospect Park, so it looks really nice. So I can look out at the trees and imagine what they're doing out there. And yeah, I'm just holding tight for right now.
Yeah.
I am also from Brooklyn, born and raised, but I am living currently in Los Angeles in the center of the city in a neighborhood called Harvard Heights, which is a subsection of West Adams, which is a really interesting community that is supposedly gentrifying. If you want your neighbor to gentrify, you should ask me to write a book about it. I'm 3 for 3. And I live here. I moved here, I guess a while ago. And I really do imagine one day I'll go back and live in Brooklyn. But for now, I'm in LA, and I have to say, it's not a bad place to be quarantined. Lots of space, great weather. People seem to be obeying the rules. We can go outside, and so it's not bad.
That's great. Yeah. Visitation Street, when we did our virtual, well, we did our tour, and you sort of guided us virtually through Red Hook.
Yeah, I can't remember why I couldn't come on that, but yeah.
Something happened and you couldn't come, but we worked a tour with librarians through a Galley Chat librarians, and we went through Red Hook, which is just ever changing. But with intonations from Visitation Street, it was really wonderful. So
yeah.
Well, I think that we should get started. So Ivy, we're going to put you in the green room.
Okay.
Basically means, I don't know.
Just sit around. Okay.
Yes, and then we'll be back. Unless there's anything else that you, Ivy, and you, Elizabeth, would like to say to each other before we say adieu.
Yes.
I'm excited to be sharing this time with you. And also, I have read Elizabeth's book. I blurbed it, and I have to say it's awesome. So it's really great. It's a great debut. It's a pretty impressive one. And yeah, so you guys are
hearing you that you liked it made me so happy because I love it.
Actually, here's a funny story. She sent me the book. They sent me the book to blurb at the last possible minute, and I had made my New Year's resolution was I'm not blurbing anything at all. And it came, and I work with Kobe Bryant, and the day he died, I was like, I can't work. I was like so upset. And I was like, okay, this is the weirdest thing. I'm going to read this book because it's the only thing I can think about doing. And I read it like that week. So it was like, I was like, I'm so glad that I did, but it was this weird confluence of events. So yeah, it was very great to escape into that world in that terrible time. But yeah, so.
Oh, I really appreciate it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. When, as you said before, things happen, there are no coincidences, and it's really lovely that, that you did that. Okay, so we will talk to you in a bit, Ivy. Elizabeth, we're going to talk to you about Catherine House.
All right. So
excited. So there we go. You got big fans here. Oh my God! And pages of fans have given this book such amazing blurbs, starred reviews all over the place. It's really so wonderful. Let's get going. Lainey.
Yeah. Well, we have so much fun with you. We've seen you several places. We've had you at Midwinter. We got to talk at the breakfast panel for Library Reads, which was really fun. And we have that video. Thankfully, we have it all recorded so everybody can listen in because you did such a great speech.
Thank you.
And we'll link to that as well. But you also came into the office to do a podcast, so we'll talk about that in a minute. But do you want to tell us a little bit about Catherine House and if they haven't read it, what it's about?
So Catherine House is this Gothic literary suspense story about a young woman who goes to this kind of cult-like college and finds that they have perhaps a dangerous secret agenda. I won't go into it too much to keep you reading. But yeah, I started writing it. I always say that I wrote it soon after I graduated college, but actually it was a few years. And I think I was kind of trying to process how I felt towards college. And it kind of, I wrote it in it while I was writing it, I think it kind of has a nostalgic feeling for me. It kind of feels like, oh, this is how I feel towards this time in my life that felt so outside of everything else that happened in my life, and that felt really removed from the rest of my life. And I just kind of wanted to capture that in a book, and both the negative and positive sides of that experience. So yeah, it was really fun to write. Parts of it came really easily and parts of it came really hard, as in every creative endeavor, I think. And it's really fun to see now, because in some ways it feels almost like a portrait of that time in my life that I get to keep and now get to share with the world.
Yeah. So I know we don't want to give the big secret away, but what's special about this school, i.e. how they cannot go anywhere after? Do you want to tell me a little about that?
Mm-hmm. So the main conceit that you learn about Catherine House, the school, from the very beginning is that the students who go there can't have any contact with the outside world, and they can't talk to their family, their friends from outside the college, and in their 3 years there, they can't leave the campus, so they don't have breaks or summers off or anything like that. They all spend those 3 years at the campus. And that was one of the very first ideas of this school. When I very first was coming up with the idea of the book, I was like, what if it's a school, but you can't leave? And I kind of like that idea of, there's a good experience, but it's almost like when you eat too much sugar or something, where it's like, it's like you have this idea of like, this place is so beautiful, so perfect, so everything, what if I can never leave? And I think that's a really interesting idea. So I wanted to play with that. And then I also thought it was fun that, just from my experience of college, and I think that a lot of people at least in the American college system, it almost happens that way, that you end up so removed from the outside world. Like, I remember when I was in college, when I would go back for break and I would read the news, and it was like, oh my God, like, what? This is what's been happening in the world. You're just so like wound up in the classes that you're taking. You're studying these things that just, you're studying philosophy or deep math or something, and get so overwhelmed with the life of your mind and the drama of like, oh, this person is hooking up with this person down the hall. It's like, just everything is so insular. And then as soon as you go outside of it, you don't even realize that you've been this obsessed and that it's been this insular until you get a peek outside. So I kind of wanted to make a kind of dramatized version of what was actually happening during at least my college experience.
Yeah, it feels like a chamber of just like ultra learning, which kind of happens in the book too, but people have that experience.
It's weird because you don't even, like, people didn't, like, we didn't watch TV, at least in my, we didn't watch normal TV. Like, we would have movie nights with each other, but we wouldn't, like, watch the news. So it was interesting.
So the house, or the school itself, Catherine House, is very like a character on its own. And so I know on the podcast you talked a lot about like reading these Gothic novels when you were younger. So what inspired you to kind of go the Gothic sense?
I went that way just because I love it so much. I almost wanted to write something that's like, let me write something that would be just something that would really appeal to like what the romantic side of myself just falls in love with. And that's those really dramatic romantic stories like Jane Eyre, like Rebecca. I loved those books as a kid, and I kind of wanted to do a play on those tropes that felt modern and felt contemporary to 20, well, it was 2016 or whatever at the time. But yeah, I think that something about those tropes really appeals to me. I'm not even really sure why. They just feel so romantic and so dramatic, and I wanted to play with those and kind of heighten them and then create and make them feel modern.
I absolutely love when you say, we have this quote somewhere that you wanted to write a book about a girl who fell in love with a house. And I think about that all the time. Such a good thing with it. So cool.
Yeah, it's fun because that was the idea almost from the very beginning, that yes, I wanted to be about a girl who falls in love with the house and that she has to stay there for those 3 years. So that was the idea from the very beginning, and that I wanted without giving anything away. But I feel like in so many stories, a person starts to feel romantically towards a house or something like that as almost a metaphor for the romantic feeling she's having towards a person. Like, she's falling in love with a person, and so like the house represents her love for the person. And I almost wanted to do it backwards, where it's like she's kind of falling in love with various people but like it's really about her experience and about this place and about this time in her life, and it's actually not about the people that she's with.
Right. And you say that, secret societies, there's some of that kind of mixed in, which is kind of Gothic in its own way. But how did you mix this feeling of like a secret society known on a college campus along with that idea of like being so isolated within your friend group? Like, how did you mix those two?
I mix them. I think that there's something so powerful about the idea of a secret society, because you just naturally, it's something kind of cultish. I did a lot of research about cults when I was planning this book, because there's something about constraint that can be so freeing, I think. So the idea that if something is secretive, then within the secret, people can be more free, And so I think that there's naturally in so many things a push and pull between between constraint and freedom, and how those two different aspects can really do a number on someone and really bring out interesting sides of people. So within the house, I wanted to play with some of these cult-like aspects of secret societies, of so many things. But when I was thinking of it, it's like when I was researching about cults, I think it's so interesting that there's so many aspects of cults that are used in various institutions that are not cults, and not suggesting that like colleges are cults or anything like that. But a lot of them use similar manipulation tactics. Sounds bad, but but yeah, those types of things. Oh, wait, one sec, I can't hear you. Oh, there you go.
So before I show the podcast, because we have a really cool picture from your past, which I'm going to let you set up a minute, because in the podcast with your editor, which was so great, Jessica Williams, people know her. She's been on several of our podcast episodes, and she's wonderful. You guys talked about, how the story came to be and all this, all the things behind the scenes. But you also talk about Yale, because that's where you went, and your third generation Yale, and talked about your grandfather. Do you want to talk about him? And then I have a cool picture of him to show.
Sure. So I went to Yale, and my grandfather had gone to Yale, and he was class of 55. Let me get that right. And actually it was funny. I did this, the midwinter talk, and my mom, obviously being my mom, like sent it to everyone in our family. Then I talked to my grandpa, and he was like, I hate to do this, but I need to fact check you on something. You said that I was one of 4 Black men in the class, and I was one of 3 Black men. And I was like, okay, well. Wow. So so my grandfather was one of 3 Black men in his class at Yale, and that I tried to find evidence of this, but I think it was unspoken basically. But he was it was a quota, like they only allowed 3 Black men per class, and men obviously, because it wasn't co-ed at the time. So yeah, that's him, the Black man.
We have such a cool photo. I'm so glad you shared this with us.
Yeah, it's a wonderful photo. And that's the Yale Glee Club. And so he went there, and his son, my dad, went there as well. And both of them had terrible experiences for various reasons. As you can imagine, I mean, my grandfather went there like when it was before the civil rights movement. So you can kind of imagine that this very extremely white old school institution. I mean, the education he got was good, but it was just, it's not a progressive institution. So he had his experience, and then my father went in the 70s, and he actually dropped out. He dropped out, and then he went back and got his degree. But anyway, he dropped out and took a mental health leave. And so for both of them, Yale was just like this extremely negative time in their life, and this extremely, like, in our house, like whenever anyone mentioned Yale, it was like, that's a stupid place. And it was almost like a running joke. And then when I was applying to school, it was, they do that thing where they just like send brochures from every school. And I got one that was like, oh, look, Yale, you should go. And my dad said, he's like, you can go to any school you want, just as long as it's not Yale. And then I did end up going to Yale. And it was really it was kind of like coincidence, because I think they changed a lot, and it was for various reasons. It was a good school. Like it had a good art history program. I wanted to major in art history. It was kind of a good distance from home, like not too far, not too close, and all this kind of stuff. But it was just funny that it was like, it had this terrible reputation in my family, and that was the one school I ended up going to. So just that, all that is to say that part of one of the things that I was interested in with this book was the idea of institutions that have these amazing reputations, because obviously, even though it had a terrible reputation in my family, I knew that, you know, it's Yale, people love that name. Like, for most people, that it has a great reputation. So I was interested in that kind of the play of those two things. And then I had a great time there, but I don't take that for granted. I think that they changed a lot, and I think that I think they only changed because they had to.
Right. And that shows through in the book too, that thought of like, it looks so great on the outside, but to some it's not. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I put a link for everybody watching in the notes so you can go see the picture and see the episode that you did with Jessica. Any love? I know that I saw some coming in.
Yeah, there's some love out there. Chris, you want to pull up some questions?
Let's see.
Sure, let's see. So Laverne, she's asking, let's see, the protagonist who is an outsider who rarely attends class and isn't a rule follower, more due to the life she runs from, does that allow her as the writer to allow distance of the demands from Catherine House? And to kind of to play off that as well, I'm just curious what it was like writing a character who's maybe not necessarily the most academically motivated person, and what that, because I'd imagine that might not be you necessarily. Like,
I could have been.
yes, I'll give you the floor on that.
After mentioning my Latin sex with that. Yeah, it was really fun to write her, and yeah, I think that I think yeah, thank you for the question, Laverne. I think that it's I when I was deciding who the protagonist would be, I thought it would be most interesting to have, you know, the house is there and it has all these rules. It would be most interesting to have someone who doesn't necessarily immediately fall in line, but also who isn't, the way she rebels is almost not really rebelling. It's not like she's like, they told me to do this, so I'm absolutely going to do it. It's like she almost doesn't even consider going to class for a while. She's just kind of like, she doesn't want to do that, so she just doesn't. And that was really freeing to write, because you're right, that is so not who I am as a person. I am very much a rule follower. If someone tells me to go to class, I will be there. I will have my pencil sharpened. I will be on time. And I have a brother actually who I adore, and he is just kind of the opposite of that. And so many times I just like what would it be like to go through the world? And it's not even that, you know, some people rebel consciously and think like, oh, I specifically want to not do this as a rebellion because someone told me to do it. And then there are the people who just like, it's like they don't, you know, they just don't even hear the rules, you know. And so writing that came almost naturally, just because I could almost think in any given situation, like what would I not do? What would be the opposite of how I would react in the situation? It was really fun to write. And I think that it makes for an interesting interaction with the school as this entity, and how it changes over the course of the book, her relationship to the school.
The little teaser in the podcast episode, you talk about if you'd go to Catherine House or not. So maybe they should go listen and see.
Yeah.
That's a great interview. That's a really good interview. Do we have that? Are you posting that, Lainey, the interview?
Yeah, I shared it in the comments. So.
There's so many people in the chat room who were at the breakfast.
Oh,
So
yay.
Catherine Healy and Lillian Dabney, they're like, oh my God, she was so great. And so many people saying, such a creepy book and such a great book.
I'm so glad people liked it. That was a really fun event. I love
that.
it.
Was a great speech.
Okay.
That was a fantastic speech. You did a wonderful job. Really, that was in a pretty nicely packed room too. And it's just really, I don't know, I just thought it was wonderful.
And it's always, a day hanging out with librarians is always going to be a great day.
Yeah.
Love it.
You want to talk about your day job and how it's a little adjacent to libraries?
Oh, nice.
If I can remember, I haven't been there in a while now. But yeah, I work at MoMA. I'm an archivist. which is it's a very strange, peculiar profession, but I adore it. So it's basically, you know, an archivist is managing the institution's records. So it's a lot, you know, speaking of not rebelling, it's a lot of putting things in order, you know, filing, bringing people files, putting files back in order, and like getting a lot of pleasure out of that. So yeah, I love it. I think it's really fun because, yeah, you know, I majored in art history in college, and I love art history as a field, but I didn't want to get my PhD because I knew I wanted to be a novelist, basically. But it's really fun being an archivist because it's like you kind of get a peek into everyone who's doing all this art history research because you're helping people do their research. So yeah, I think that it's funny if people ask how Catherine House or my creative writing in general is connected to my day job, and I was like, I'm not really sure it is, except that I think that in both of them I have to be very methodical and very you know, I show up to work 9 to 5, I go home, I write for 3 hours. It's very, very regimented, but I love both of them, and if anyone has any questions about archives, feel free to get in touch.
That's great. What are you reading right now?
Right now, I'm rereading, let's see, The Good House, another creepy house book. I don't know how to do it. Great book. And then let's see, this is my to read film. I'm really excited. I really want to read The Return by Rachel Harrison. I think that's what I'm going to do next. It's like a thrillery book that just came out. So I'm really excited. You know, other authors who are debuting right now. What else is over there? I have The Age of Innocence, which I've never read. So I'm kind of like, I guess now is a time to go for it. I also have The Dictionary of Symbols, which I'm obviously not going to read straight through. But I somehow got it over here, and it's just like, yeah, just a dictionary, like literally it's like flower, and then tells you all the things that a flower can mean in a book. This smells, it's a really good smelling book. Anyway.
What does it smell like?
This is like a real classic book smell. Like, you know, you're in, like when you get the stack of books, like when you were in elementary school, you know, and then and they're just like, I don't know, just real fresh paperback smell. Like, this is a good one.
Everybody who's watching this right now is nodding their heads. Chris and I, you know, because everybody says the same thing. Like, yeah, ebooks are great. You know, you can like just fill that thing up and save your arms.
You know, it's not the same. You gotta get all. The only problem I have now is like I feel like I'm getting older and my sense of smell is getting a little worse. So I have to like read like this to get the smell, but I can't. I don't know, this is what I'm dealing with now. So important issues.
Maybe that should be like an aerosol. You know, like there's beach, you know, ocean spray. There should be, I don't know, paperback.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there's you'll see there's so much love in the chat room here, and certainly in our virtual room, and you have been so wonderful attending the ALA Midwinter Conference and doing the podcasts and speaking at the breakfast and signing tons of galleys and just being so lovely. And we're so excited for you. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't read Ivy Pochoda's quote.
Okay.
Start reviews from PW and book list. I mean, there are pages of quotes here, all raves. But Ivy Pochoda's is so wonderful. I'm going to read it as we wind up here and bring her out. Catherine House is a novel that lingers long after the final page. It's a haunting, mesmerizing debut, a modern Gothic tale that is profoundly moving and eerily disturbing. Thomas's novel makes us question our ability to forgive, to accommodate our mistakes and those of others, and the possibility of ever truly finding a place that feels like home. I think that's pretty much, it says it all. I mean, this is a book it was an Indie Next pick and the best book of the month on Amazon. I mean, it goes on and on. Most anticipated book by Cosmo. I could read them all. There's just so much love in the book world and for your book, and we're so excited for you, and you are just so, you're just so wonderful, and you can, you were just so helpful in the booth when we were making our
We were making mint juleps for the midwinter.
we were making mint juleps. We were making mint juleps in honor of our dearly departed Dot Frank, and Elizabeth said, I can tear up the mint. I was like, okay, great. And there she went. So you are just absolutely lovely and so talented, and it's just, we're thrilled. We're thrilled for you. Book goes on sale May 12th. Is that correct?
I'm so excited, and I couldn't be more thrilled to. I mean, this has been such a pleasure of a journey so far. I'm excited to continue. Those words from Ivy meant so much because I love Ivy's writing also. And yeah, anyone who wants to get in touch, I don't know, Twitter or however else.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be more active, and this is everyone here has been just so wonderful to work with, and it's very exciting.
Well, it's an honor to know you. So thank you very much, and congratulations, and
So
all
much.
the best. Yeah, happy book birthday next week.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's always good to see you.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Now
Oh.
we'll bring in the other Brookline. No, she's so great. She's just so smart. No, it's just great. So much fun. Now we need another Brooklynite.
Shall we bring Ivy on?
Bring her on.
All right.
Did she leave?
No, she's coming on. Don't worry.
All right.
She heard mint juleps and she had to go grab one.
Ah.
Oh. Ivy, where'd you go?
There she is. Coming. She's coming.
There.
There.
Hey,
Yay.
Hey, Ivy.
it's kept kicking me out of the green room. Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm here.
What did you do? Well, what did you do?
What did I do while I was waiting?
Yeah.
You really want to know?
Yeah, I kind of do.
Editing, I'm revising the final draft of my second a middle grade novel with, for Kobe Bryant. So I was reading my, manuscript.
Oh, gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we read your quote, your review for Catherine House. And
Oh, okay. I was like, what?
What did you do? And so, really that, I mean, it's so perfectly wraps up what that book is. You really get the essence of that book. I mean, it's just wonderful. We're so thrilled for her, debut. It's really
Yeah.
great.
It was such a surprise, that book. I had no idea what to expect. I loved it. Yeah.
Well, now it's time to talk about your book.
Oh, wow.
Yes. These Women.
Mm-hmm.
We have a jacket. I
don't even have a hardback.
What's that? What'd you say?
I don't even have I don't even have a finished copy. So.
Oh, well, we soon. I mean, everything world's upside down.
What's cool about the galley for this one is the step back. You can just see the cigarette, which is so cool. Oh, there you go.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty good.
This was my marketing idea. Have you seen? I thought they could do like postcards or something, but this was an infinitely better idea.
That's very, very smart. Very smart. So I would love for you to just talk about your book. Tell everyone about your book. Tell them
okay.
what you want them to know, but don't tell them everything.
No, that's why I have to like compulsively read Goodreads reviews, because people have been someone actually interviewed me about the book, and like the second question gave away like the story, and I was like, oh my God.
That's so annoying.
Like, am I crazy, or is this a terrible question? I had to send it to a few people. My book is about, it's loosely based on a serial killer who operated in South LA around the time that I moved here. The case was in the news. He was called the Grim Sleeper, and his name is Lonnie Franklin. Actually, he died a couple weeks ago. And he had been dormant. Well, it's not really, okay, so he had killed people, they figured 17 years earlier, and then had been dormant for a decade or so, and then had started killing again in the early 2000s. And he killed predominantly Black and Latino women down in South LA, and no one really cared. I watched a documentary about him made by this filmmaker, Nick Broomfield. He's British and quite buttoned down. I think he made Taxi to the Dark Side about torture after 9/11. And he interviewed these friends of the serial killer, his like little posse. And it was so fascinating. I'm not interested in serial killers at all in the slightest. But in the course of this documentary, these guys are like, they give the basic spiel like, oh, he was awesome. Bonnie was just like a regular guy. We went fishing and, that whole story there's no way he was a killer. And then sort of halfway through the documentary, they changed their tune. They're like, well, I guess he did have all those pictures of women like tied up and like bound and like gagged in his car. And there was something going on in his shed all the time. And, he had like ropes and like he would tell us about these sadistic things he liked to do to women. And then they interviewed his son's girlfriend, Lonnie Franklin's son's girlfriend, who had lived with them at the time as well for a while. And she was really normal, but she was like, yeah, it was really creepy. Like he'd come and watch us when we were in bed and, all these other things. And I thought, oh my God, these people knew, they knew. And it became somewhat clear that he was killing these women back in the back of their house or in the garage or whatever. The wife must have known or something. So I just became really interested in the amount of denial that was going on around this guy. And I started thinking about it, and I started thinking about serial killers, and I realized that like the victims of a serial killer are not just his victims, like the people who die, but it's the people who are existing in that specter of violence that surrounds him, and the people who have to lie to themselves to get through the everyday. Like there is no way his wife didn't know. There is no way his son's girlfriend didn't know. So I sort of became interested in the network of people around someone like Lonnie Franklin. And what I decided to do, because I think serial killers are inherently boring, it's only like hungry television watchers and readers who puff them up, is to take him out of the story entirely and to write it as a patchwork story of the people who are affected by his crimes, not necessarily the victims, but like his family and friends.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting that you did that, because it's different, and it's I think it makes it so much more interesting. We actually did a presentation of titles to the Darien Library a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. They were so excited to hear that you were coming on, because that was one of the books where they were just like, that's different, and that's really unusual. And sort of in a strange way, respectful.
Yeah, so I'm sort of interested in this idea of why we are obsessed with serial killers, because like the more you read about them, they're not like criminal masterminds who are doing this like, I'm trying to get away with stuff and planning stuff, obsessively. So police and, forensics, we try to build them up in this image of like super, super like masterminds, because we can't find them. It's just like the greedy, like the I'll Be Gone in the Dark, the Golden State Killer. He was just some guy. He was like hanging out over there. Just like, he wasn't trying not to get caught, and he was killing a lot of people, and no one could find him. And we have this obsession with them, which I think makes the killer has made the killer way more important than his victims. And we forgot that this is really about the person whose lives are not being lost. And I read some accounts of children whose parents turned out to be, fathers mostly, turned out to be serial killers, and like, we owe the respect to them. We don't owe the respect to some like guy you wouldn't notice on the subway who's just like secretly killing a whole bunch of people. It's just almost grotesque, our obsession with this.
Yeah. Can you talk about why the location, where the neighborhood and
well, if I could turn my screen around, you could see it. I live there. I live in the middle of the city in a neighborhood called Harvard Heights, which is in a section of West Adams. And my book is set in West Adams, a little bit primarily south of where I live. So West Adams is a really interesting neighborhood because it was the first neighborhood in Los Angeles where they lifted the restrictions on non-white home ownership. So it had been a sort of affluent suburb of downtown. And there are all these beautiful big houses, big by other standards, not by LA standards. But there's some huge mansions, craftsman, Victorian houses. But when non-white home ownership became legal, the city planners decided to drop the 10 freeway right in the middle of the neighborhood and just kind of cut it in half and put this giant gulf. So West Adams started to become derelict. For a while, there was sort of an African-American renaissance here. Marvin Gaye lived here, Ray Charles, lots of people. But, you know, it did sort of fall on hard times. So it's very interesting looking. You know, it has a lot of beautiful houses, but a lot of crap they put here. But I'm very neighborhood proud and was talked into serving on my neighborhood community board, which has the unfortunate name of the United Neighborhoods Neighborhood Council. So I was like confused, like, what is the name of this council? Because we're a collection of United Neighborhoods and we're a neighborhood council. I could only do it I only served 1.5 years of my term because my husband's job moved us around to New York. But during that time, I learned a lot about the community, as you would, and it's not, I wouldn't say segregated, but there's 2 major areas of concern. And one is the predominantly African-American longtime residents who want things to change in terms of more services and more amenities and better schools and so on and so forth. And then there is a sort of newer faction of predominantly white historic preservationists who want to like restore the neighborhood to its natural beauty. And these things can often be at odds with one another, because if you want certain stores, you can't have your house looking like, you know, can't have a sign outside or whatever. But the one thing that everyone agreed on was that the prostitution problem, which plagues this corridor of West Adams, had to go. It was like the unifying force in this like council. I mean, there's a lot of neat things in the council, but this fascinated me. And everyone agreed that the right way to do this was to shame the prostitutes. And I was like, that is the worst idea. Like, in what world do you think these women want to be walking, you know, on the street on Western Avenue, which is, you know, north-south corridor, right by the 10 freeway, cars come off, pick up women, duck into alleys. They don't want to be doing that. Like, and they don't have free will in doing it. They are being run by, you don't want to know who they're being run by, you know, individually, drug cartels or rings or like really pretty scary customers. So the inability of a really humane group of people who have the neighborhood's best interests in heart, their inability to see prostitutes as human beings was shocking to me. And so the neighborhood and its makeup really sort of informed the story, because it started with my interest in this prostitution issue and sort of, you know, married that to the serial killer.
Boy.
So, yeah.
Well, and that, I mean, that really comes through. I mean, I could just envision it, you know, when you, in the book, when you're talking about these old houses, and it's like, oh, wow, they sound like they were so beautiful in their day. And then there's this great big, you know, thing.
We're trying to, I mean, I have a smaller one, you know, it's great. It's a really great community. It is one of the more diverse places I can imagine living in the heart of a major city. You know, we've got everyone's here. So it's pretty cool.
That's so cool.
Mhm.
And that's coming from someone who was born and raised in Brooklyn.
Yeah. I thought, like, I wrote that book, Visitation Street, about Red Hook, which I thought was diverse. No, I mean, even my block, it's pretty great with gang people across the street, and my next door neighbors are Korean on one side, El Salvadorian and Filipino. It's just really, and a lot of them are really longtime residents of this community. So
yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's so rich.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lainey and I live in Queens, so it's, you know,
right. Yeah.
pretty wonderful. So speaking of Visitation Street, there's we have a question here from Nora Rawlinson, founder of Early Word, which was the tour that Nora got everybody together so we could do the tour.
Yeah.
Of Visitation Street. So she is watching. And she says, you really captured Red Hook, Brooklyn in your first book, Visitation Street. I wanted to tell you that one day I was walking around the neighborhood, a car pulled up. The woman in the passenger seat had Visitation Street open in her lap. She and her husband had driven from Connecticut to check out some of the scenes in the book, a real testament to how real your book made the setting.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm so glad to know that. I'm so glad people from Connecticut feel comfortable visiting Brooklyn. No, I'm kidding. No, I love Connecticut. Actually, I lived there for 9 months on a writing residency. That's really great. Yeah, it's funny because all those streets are still there, but a lot of the landmarks in that book are being absorbed, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we had a chat about Red Hook yesterday, and it's definitely changing. It's like, ooh, what's these big high rises going on here?
I know my friend lives there, and next to his house, they're putting in this like super elite rehab center for like rich people to dry out like from like drugs and alcohol. And when I was living in Red Hook, it was quite the opposite. So like that wouldn't fly at all. I was like, they must feel confident that the old neighborhood is gone to put a rehab center in Red Hook.
Yeah, well, you've arrived. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the characters, the women. So they're so different. So then there's multiple perspectives, and just can you talk a little bit about how you got not under their skin, but just in their skin, I guess, really,
Sure.
And how did you? I mean, I have to say that the from page 1, the dialogue, you're very much right there. I just feel like it's just I don't know, if you just really captured it so perfectly. It doesn't feel anything except where it should be. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, as far as I am concerned, yes. And I'm glad to hear other people think the same.
Yeah.
It's each character is different. Some were really easy. I think the ones who have a little more voice to them, like Juliana, who's she's in her 20s, she's an exotic dancer. That's what she says she is. These are some slippery designations. Her voice just, it came to me super easy because I think when you have someone who has a driving like goal of what they're trying to say, like she is trying to struggle against this designation that she's always going to be a street girl or a street kid, and like everything she's talking about drives to that point, like I am more than this, or sort of struggling with this life that she's being corralled into. So her voice just like I knew her story, so it just started rolling. And Philia, who's the only character in the written in the first person, I had to think about this yesterday for a questionnaire. You like have a book coming out, you never think about it, and people just ask you all the questions. You're like, oh wait, I do know these answers. I wrote the book. So I got a little stuck on the plot, and I just started writing from Philia's viewpoint in the first person. Her voice came from two places. If you've read Wonder Valley, that my previous novel, that I spent a lot of time in Skid Row teaching creative writing, and the streets are pretty loud, and there's a lot of voices and a lot of talking at an extremely high volume, and it's really kind of wild, like the extremes of emotion, and these are often people who are not being heard by anyone, who's doing anything to help them, and they talk louder, and they have mental health issues, but they just cannot get their point across. They talk and talk and talk, and it's fascinating to hear the extremes of what they're saying. So Philia was sort of like that. Like Juliana, she had one story to tell. This bad thing happened to her, and she's going to tell you about it, the repercussions of it. Her voice is drawn from the voices I hear in Skid Row. And also, I have to say, there is a woman in that Nick Broomfield documentary who acts as his tour guide in South LA. And she's so fascinating. She's exactly the type of person who we write off as not having anything to say, not being a valid human being. She was a prostitute. And she's basically his like Dr. Watson on this, tour, and she's so smart, but it's sort of underneath this sort of almost at times very difficult to decode South LA patois. And I was like, this is great. I love this because what she's saying is fascinating. And she's very funny. And she's talking about how like she could have had a career as a detective, it's just great. So I sort of married her. Oh my God, she scolds this prostitute on the street for not wearing pants. I mean, it's really funny, really touching. And I married her to some of the women I work with downtown. So it was, for her, the character that was the hardest was Dorian. I mean, I don't know why that just took forever. She was the first one I did. I'm not as comfortable initially writing women characters. It's something that was not as easy for me. Oh my God, this never get an Apple Watch. It's like telling me bad news. I just threw it across the room. It's like, I turned it off. It's like, I never have it on. It keeps beeping. It's like the Justice Department and the world's ending. It's like, go away. Dorian was a little harder because she is a grieving mother.
Yeah.
And that's like, she's stagnant, So like when your character is stagnant, and like, you don't want to give her a fake mission. Like she's going to become a gospel singer and then she's going to like be practicing. Like it was really hard for me to access her voice without her just like belaboring, oh, my dead daughter. Oh, this injustice. So for her, that took a while. So, but once you give each character like, and it's not a lot of each chapter. They're like, I don't know, 70 pages each. That sounds about right. I have no idea. And they have each character has just one thing that they're working. Like Morella's an artist. Annika grew up religious, so she has this prayers going through her head. It sort of gave me like a scaffolding in which to hang all of their sort of things they're talking about. I had this sort of through line for, they would always refer to whether it's, Juliana wants to be a photographer or the detective likes crossword puzzles. So like, it just gave me a little structure for each of their stories.
Yeah, they all come across so differently. But Dorian really she's heartbreaking.
Oh, I'm so glad. Am I still working on this book? Because maybe I should change it.
No, don't.
It was so hard.
I bet it
was so hard. Because the problem with Dorian is she's not, like Ophelia opens the book like guns blazing, and then Juliana for me is very exciting. Dorian has to be a quiet excitement, and it was really hard to get that without her just being like, oh, I miss my kid and no one helped me.
That doesn't feel that way. Well, to me, it doesn't at all.
Good. I mean, at this stage, it shouldn't. I did work on it.
You didn't do one draft. So you've got, these wonderful reviews. Again, people think I'm making this up. We get star reviews all over the place. Attica Locke. Don't we love Attica Locke?
We do. I love Attica.
Michael Connolly, Publishers Weekly.
Yeah.
Says starred review. Library Journal starred review says Pochoda stuns with this disquieting literary thriller rife with descriptive street language and violence. It is complex, intense, and enthralling. It is. It's so good. I don't want to put you on the spot, but did you want to read a smidge or
Sure. Now that I've thrown my watch across the room. Great.
You should be a spokesperson for Apple Watch.
What's that? I love my Apple Watch because it keeps me honest during these quarantine times about moving around. It also tells me to breathe all the time.
Oh.
As if I've forgotten. Okay. So I'm going to read my favorite section of the book, which is Juliana's section. For anyone who hasn't read it, which is probably most of you. The book is written in like blocks. So it's like we follow one character. So we do Dorian, the grieving mother, and then we switch to Juliana, who's the kind of fast girl who's adjacent to the life, and then the detective. So we're starting, this is the beginning of Juliana's section, so you haven't missed anything. Click. There's Kathy sitting on a dirty leather couch with the stuffing popping through. There she is, leaning back, arms thrust out like she's beckoning the world, turning that couch into her throne. There she is, 5 years younger, skin good, hair sleek, skirt so short you can quick glimpse her red thong. There she is, cigarette in one hand, glass of something, maybe Hennessy in the other. There she is, wildcat eyes, snake mouth. There she is, frozen in time, preserved perfect in 5 megapixels. It was Kathy, the raging Cajun, who first took Juliana downtown and showed her the bars and illegal clubs just off Olympic, who introduced her to the man who said Juliana was pretty enough to model, the man who promised he'd turn her into South LA's Cindy Crawford. He didn't know, and Juliana didn't tell him, she liked the other side of the camera. It was Kathy who helped Juliana get her first job, waiting tables at Sam's Hofbrau, which turned out not to be a beer hall, but a strip club. It was Kathy who encouraged Juliana to try out dancing, encouraged her to get on stage. Kathy who turned Juliana into Jujubee. Jujubee is a nice name when you're high. Nice to say quickly. Nice to call out across a club. Nice to let buzz around inside your head. Nice to tell the guy who wants more than a lap dance. It's a nice name that allows you to escape who you really are. A name that allows you to do things that a Juliana wouldn't do. A few years after Juliana started dancing at Sam's, Kathy took a turn into a rougher line of work. Tried her luck on the streets instead of the bars. She said she needed more cash for her habit, her kids, her brother locked up somewhere, and his kids. And she and Juliana went their separate ways. It's been 24 hours since the news rolled down Western that Kathy was dead up in an empty lot on 27th Place. Juliana had been getting ready for work at the Fast Rabbit when she got a call from Coco, who heard from Raina, who heard from Marisol, who heard from Sandra, whose mom worked at Moon Pie Pizza a block from 27th, so it had to be true. Kathy had her throat slit and was suffocated and tossed. The news was like a punch in the stomach, so hard and fast it knocked Juliana to the couch. More than a day later, she still hasn't left the apartment. Thanks. Cheerful.
Wow. It's so powerful, really. It's so powerful.
Thanks.
Thank you so much
Oh, yeah.
for reading that. And
Oh, yeah. No problem.
on and talking to us. I mean, it's an honor.
I love you guys. I mean, you've helped me with all my books, so I'm so excited to be here.
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
No.
We just think the world of you, and you're
Thanks.
an amazing writer. So thank you. Anything else we want to say before we wrap up, so that Ivy can go get her Apple Watch?
Oh God.
We good, you guys?
And lots of people want to read the book. They're
Awesome.
great, so
Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm really excited. I'm so excited that, at least my version of these women's stories is going to be told. And, even though it's fiction, it does have some anchor in something that's going on here in LA and around the world, with a certain class of women being disregarded, and women in general being disregarded. And so hopefully people will see past the fiction and into the, disheartening truth.
It's so important. I mean, and as I said to you before, it's just, it's a very interesting and respectful take on this perspective.
Thank you.
So, and thank you. And it's going on sale May 19th. So your book birthday is coming up soon.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Yeah.
I really am. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we wish you all the best with this book. Congratulations. It's really
Thank you.
such a powerful read. And
Thanks.
yeah, just much luck to you, and gratitude for all you've done for libraries, for librarians. I mean, you've just been very supportive, and it's greatly appreciated, and we love your work. So much gratitude to you.
Thanks, Ivy.
I think Ivy's free.
I might.
Well,
Tuning in. I really appreciate it. Okay. See you guys later.
Bye, Ivy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.
See you next Tuesday.
Yeah, I think we're done. So we're saying goodbye next
No.
Tuesday.
Are we still on?
No, we are still on. I think we have something we want to share.
We are on for next Tuesday. What, Lainey, what do you want to say?
sorry. We're all so excited about everything happening.
I know.
Just a reminder, we have Sarah Beth Durst on our Instagram tomorrow, so tune in all day. She's going to be taking it over, and at 11 a.m. Eastern, she's going to show us around her writing desk. She said there's some some cats that might be wandering through some fun things. So tune in, Harper Library on our Instagram account. And we had Leon Dolan yesterday who just killed it, had such a cool one. So you can check that out now.
And then for next week's big. Every week's big. I feel like we just an embarrassment of riches. But next week, Tuesday, we have the May Library Reads winners joining us. So that is Liv Constantine, Sonali Dave, and then Kimberly McCrate. So that's going to be super fun.
Can't wait.
You can get ready for it by listening to the podcast because they were all on our latest episode.
Oh, lady, you should post that.
Yes, I'll do it.
It's
do that.
That's fantastic. That's a really cool. Those are really cool interviews that you did, and they're not terribly long, but they're really wonderful, and those are really cool books. So yeah, they're all going to be on.
So join
They're
us.
super short. They're not. It's not a long podcast. It's just them saying thanks for voting for us. So you can listen to it. It's like 10 minutes or so. So check that out before you watch.
Definitely.
What are you gonna say?
And just you can sign up for our events to receive reminders just in case. I know there's a lot going on in the world, but that's one you definitely don't want to miss. And then Thursday, May 14th, we have the one and only Karen Slaughter joining us on Door to Door. So again, that's going to be so much fun. If you know Karen, you know you're in for a treat. It will be entertaining, hilarious, and informative. Of course, she'll be in conversation with her editor, so that'll be really cool. Some very unique perspectives coming there. So that is Thursday.
And double back-to-back Karen Slaughter, because she'll be on our Instagram page the next day on that Friday. So.
Yeah, Thursday.
Karen Slaughter Palooza.
Slaughterpalooza. This was great, you guys. Thank you all for attending, and those are two really cool books. You know, to have that's such a powerful debut, and then to have Ivy Pochoda back with this really interesting novel about some scary thing, but I just love that you don't ever really see the serial killer because, like she said, it's not really about him. I love that she says that serial killers are kind of boring. There are so many things that people have said that we should make t-shirts.
We'll have a whole line on Etsy. Just keep your eyes peeled.
Yeah. Oh, man. All right. Well, thank you, guys. Stay safe. Be well. And we'll be back Tuesday.
See you then, everyone.
Bye.